It is not a wonder that tea is a national beverage in Kenya. Farmers have been producing tea in Kenya since 1903. However, small-scale farmers began growing tea in the 1950s. Today, Kenya is the third largest producer of black tea and the leading exporter in the world, accounting for 22% of global exports. Tea is a major foreign currency exchange earner for Kenya, contributing up to 20% of Kenya's total export revenue. Small-scale farmers grow more than 60% of the Kenyan tea produce, while the rest is grown by large-scale producers. However, with the threat of global warming and the looming catastrophic effects of climate change, we must all take deliberate measures to protect the future of this important crop.
In our own country, we have seen the constant droughts that have now come about, and it affects food supply, it affects water, and generally affects the livelihoods of the populations that live around our country. Tea is not any different. If there is no sufficient rain, we are not going to be able to produce tea. And if the rain patterns change, probably we'll realize that we are not able to produce tea sustainably.
KTDA, which manages 63 tea processing factories serving over 500,000 small-scale tea farmers, has initiated measures towards improved sustainability. It has set up sustainable agricultural programs in 4 of its factories that would serve as pilots and that would benefit the farmers in the short and long term. KTDA, supported by a grant from the UK's Department for International Development, DFID, joined forces with Lipton in 2006 to pilot new methods of encouraging Kenyan smallholder tea farmers to adopt more sustainable and profitable farming practices while producing the best possible quality tea. Further funding for the programs has been obtained from the Dutch Initiative for Sustainable Trade, IDH, of the Netherlands. In a bid to meet international standards, the farmers agreed to follow the stipulations that would lead to Rainforest Alliance certification. Rainforest Alliance is a global renowned certification body.
We also expect the yield in the farm to improve, therefore better returns to the farmers. And most importantly, as I did mention, is the aspect of the Rainforest Alliance seal on the product, which gives the customer or the consumers the confidence. Thereby, this realizes a premium over and above the price that the farmers get in the auction, and this ends up with the farmers.
KTDA carried out pilot projects in 4 factories. The sites were Momul in Kericho, Nyansiongo in Kisii, Gere in Thika, and Mungania in Embu. The Rainforest Alliance certification required these small-scale farmers to meet rigorous social and environmental standards. One of the requirements for certification was for farmers to establish farmer field schools. At each school, farmers were taught about best practices for sustainable agricultural and ecological conservation. These farmers were then expected to transfer the new knowledge learnt to their farms. The sessions served as a venue for discussing challenges encountered, successes gained, and the way forward.
For small-scale farmers or small-scale tea farmers, you know, KTDA, we are having so many farmers within one factory catchment. Like we are talking of, let's say, Mamul, having over 12,000 farmers. Now, to reach these farmers, all of them, to agree to the certification or to agree to follow all the requirement of the RA standard is a challenge, because you have to visit all of the farmers to make sure that they understand what are the requirements and also agree to adhere to those requirements and practice them.
The farmers were jointly involved in managing trial plots where all the best methods were put in place and the results monitored closely. The farmers learned that to support sustainable growth and productivity, they had to implement soil conservation measures in their farms. Even so, small-scale tea farmers were taught not to be entirely reliant on one crop, and diversification was introduced. They were advised to implement complementary farm-based projects that would generate extra revenue. Farmers diversified into various projects. Some into rabbit keeping, others chose the zero-grazing dairy farming, each choice in accordance to individual family needs. The link between tree cover and climate change is of global importance, and this was reiterated at the grassroots level. The farmers learned how this global concern affects them and what measures could be taken to mitigate against the possible consequences. For instance, the Mogaka group in Gere Tea Factory manages indigenous tree nurseries. Seedlings are sold to members and the surrounding community. Nonetheless, some exotic tree species like the eucalyptus are not recommended around water catchment areas. To qualify for the certification, farmers had to cut all water-hungry trees around their wetlands. Alongside these adjustments is the efficient use of water for irrigation. One of the practices employed by this group was the creation of riparian strips adjacent to their streams and rivers. The riparian strip acts as a buffer zone between land and a stream.
When you talk of certification under Rainforest Alliance, issues to do with conservation is very, very critical. And that is why when we talk of indigenous trees, it is really a requirement. So this arboretum, we have various types of indigenous trees which we established, and they have different values. And the main purpose of this establishing the indigenous trees is because we want people to learn the indigenous trees that we have.
Typically, firewood is the common source of fuel in these tea-growing areas in Kenya. Under this project, the farmers learned that renewable sources of energy like firewood had to be managed efficiently. By switching to the insulated cooking stoves, popularly known as jikos, the women in charge of the households realized that they used less wood fuel. Farmers also learned that waste management begins at the domestic level. The certification regulations required proper waste disposal. The Rainforest Alliance places strong emphasis on recycling organic material as a key component to a healthy environment. At the factory level, similar measures were put in place for the disposal of waste. An important function of proper disposal is the separation of non-organic from organic waste matter. No pesticides are used in the cultivation of Kenyan tea, a fact that makes our tea highly rated in the world. However, for other food crops that require the use of pesticides, the farmers employ sustainable agricultural practices that emphasize proper handling of chemicals for personal safety. At the factories, the workers are provided with protective gear. They are also treated ethically and fairly.
I may say that workers have been made to know their rights. For example, maternity leaves were provided, annual leaves were taken, and again, CBA, that is the collective bargaining agreement, has been going on and done in time, of which we appreciate.
After months of intensive work, Momul Tea Factory in Kericho became the first smallholder tea factory in the world to be awarded the Rainforest Alliance certification. This certification holds the weight of an internationally recognized seal of quality.
And we had also been promised by Lipton's that when you go through, when they buy our tea directly from KTDA, we shall be paid a small premium of 10 US cents per kilo over and above what that tea fetched at Mombasa auction. And since July this last year, yes, I'm happy to say that our company has been enjoying that premium, and up to last month, the company had received over 2 million Kenya shillings. And this is something to be happy about, because that money will be paid to the farmer. So we are very happy indeed.
The other three factories, Ngere, Nyansiongo, and Mungania in this pilot project have also met the requirements. Rainforest Alliance certified factories stand to benefit from higher prices for tea bought by Lipton for the international market. Ever since these small-scale tea farmers made the resolve to change to sustainable agricultural practices, increase in yield rose from an average of 1 kilogram to 1.2 kilograms per bush. The Rainforest Alliance certification has enabled farmers to produce tea in a sustainable manner and register increased earnings in the long term. The results show bright prospects for this initiative, with KTDA set to roll out to the 63 tea processing factories that it manages. Indeed, Lipton, which is the largest buyer of our tea, has declared that it will only buy Rainforest Alliance certified tea from the year 2015 onwards.
Na saa mimi nalima, mimi naona mimi nafaidika sana, kwa maana mimi sijaandikwa kazi, bwana wangu hajaandikwa kazi, lakini tu kuvuna majani yenyewe mimi nafaidika sana. Tena kikundi niliingia kinanipatia mapato mingi sana.
Mambo ya chai sasa imeongezeka kilo, sio vile tulikuwa nazo mbeleni. Wakati nilifunzwa kuchuna chai, nimeona tofauti ya kilo ile nilipata, na hata ile pesa nilipata mwaka huu sio kama ile nilipata mwaka uliopita.
Learning actively and practically has given the tea farmers around these tea factories the independence and confidence to address challenges and introduce changes in their own farms. These certified tea farming communities are leaders in sustainable agriculture and the initiators of long-term economic, environmental and social benefits in the face of a changing climatic reality.